firing shots from this home, killing at least one person, injuring 3 more. The battle lasting more than 24 hours. An ABC News investigation. BMWs bursting into flames. Reports that dozens of one of the most expensive cars on the road have been mysteriously igniting while parked, even turned off. What's sparking the blaze? Brian Ross here with the new report.
An amazing survival. The 23-year-old hiker stranded in the wilderness with just her dog by her side.
It was just like a huge mistake. It ended up being like 7 days.
Lost after taking a wrong turn on a trail, the incredible rescue. Now she's speaking out right here on GMA.
Live in Times Square, this is GMA with Robin Roberts, George Stephanopoulos, and Michael Strahan.
Yes, some good news on this busy Thursday morning. What a great survival story.
Oh, yeah, that hiker and her dog were lost for nearly a week in the Montana wilderness with grizzlies nearby, and thank goodness they both made it out safely.
A lot of smiles
Good story.
for them this morning, and also a lot going on. Much more fallout over the president's decision to fire FBI Director James Comey. Reports this morning that the Deputy Attorney General Ron Rosenstein threatened to resign if the White House didn't clarify that this decision was driven by the president, not him. And President Trump's spokesperson Sarah Huckabee Sanders is standing by to respond.
Just one of the many stories that we are following. A new headline in that FBI bombshell. Former Director James Comey had asked for more money and resources to investigate Russian meddling in the election just days before he was fired. Meanwhile, acting FBI Director Andrew McCabe will testify today before the Senate Intelligence Committee, which Comey had originally been scheduled to do. And ABC News can report that President Trump is expected to sign another executive order today, this one forming a presidential commission on election integrity that will look into possible voter fraud.
A lot of questions about the president's claims there. Let's get right to the breaking new details on the firing of James Comey. Chief White House correspondent John Carl starts us off. Good morning, John.
Good morning, George. This came close to escalating into an even bigger crisis. George, I am told that Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein was so upset with the White House for saying that the firing of Comey was his idea that he was on the verge of resigning. The first words from former FBI Director James Comey after he was abruptly fired came in a letter to his staff and friends. Comey writing, "I'm not going to spend time on the decision or the way it was executed. I hope you won't either. It is done." He goes on to say, "In times of turbulence, the American people should see the FBI as a rock of competence, honesty, and independence." But Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, in a memo to President Trump that was delivered to the White House Tuesday afternoon, says Comey inflicted substantial damage to the FBI's reputation and credibility. The White House initially said the memo was the reason Trump chose to fire him.
When he brought the recommendation to the president that the director of the FBI should be removed, President Trump provided the kind of strong and decisive leadership the American people have come to be accustomed from him.
So who ordered the review of Comey to begin with? Press Secretary Sean Spicer pointed the finger at the Justice Department.
So the White House had no involvement in this decision to write this letter by the Deputy Attorney General.
That's correct.
But ABC News has learned it was Trump himself who had soured on Comey and set the firing process into motion. Early Monday afternoon, the president met with the Attorney General and the Deputy Attorney General at the White House, said to them he wanted to fire Comey, asked for their opinion, and told them to put it in writing. When did he make the decision?
He made the decision for the final decision to move forward with it was yesterday, but I know that he's been contemplating it for a while.
What was the reason for the firing? What was written by the Deputy Attorney General? Is that why he did it?
That was, I think, the final piece that moved the president to make that quick and decisive action yesterday.
Democrats say the firing of Comey, who was overseeing the Russia investigation, is an abuse of presidential power.
The reality is his team is the subject of an investigation. None of us know where that investigation is going to lead. And that's a very apparent conflict of interest for the president.
In his letter to Comey telling him he was terminated, Trump made a point of raising the FBI's Russia probe. Writing, "I greatly appreciate you informing me on 3 separate occasions that I'm not under investigation." Associates of Comey tell ABC News they are highly skeptical that Comey ever would have told the president that he was not under investigation. They say it's possible that was the president's understanding, but that Comey would never have cleared anybody while the investigation is still underway, and that it would have been highly inappropriate of him to do so. Robin?
All right, John, thank you. And Comey's firing took much of the president's own party by surprise. Some Republicans are backing his decision, but at least a dozen say it raises concerns. Our congressional correspondent, Mary Bruce, is on Capitol Hill with new reporting. Good morning, Mary.
Good morning, Robin. Well, the president's decision to fire the FBI director this morning is dividing even his own party. At least 12 Senate Republicans are voicing questions and concerns. Even the Republican leading the Senate's Russia investigation says it makes no sense. And now the Republican chair of the House Oversight Committee is asking the Justice Department to investigate the firing. Now, on the other side of the aisle, Democrats are demanding a special prosecutor take over the Russia investigation. Even some Republicans I've talked with seem open to the idea, but Robin, Republican leaders aren't budging.
And a little bit more on that, because these calls from the Democrats, and there are some Republicans as well, but having the special prosecutor step in perhaps.
Yeah, and this fight is brewing, Robin. Some Democrats say they will oppose the president's pick for the next FBI director unless that special prosecutor is appointed. Now, Democrats can threaten, they can delay, but that's about it. Confirmation requires just a simple Senate majority, and the Republicans have that. Robin.
All right, Mary, thank you. George?
Hey, thanks, Robin. And here for President Trump this morning, his spokesperson, Sarah Huckabee Sanders. Sarah, thanks for joining us this morning. I want to clarify some things on the timeline right here. In the hours after Mr. Comey was fired, you, Sean Spicer, Kellyanne Conway, all said that the Deputy Attorney General wrote this memo on his own with no involvement from the president or the White House. That wasn't true, was it?
Well, George, I think you're putting things a little out of context here. The information in the letter was something that he came to on his own. On Monday, they were at the White House for other meetings. The president asked them about their opinions on Comey. They told them, he asked for them to put that in writing, the conversation that they had orally there at the White House on Monday, asked them to put that in writing. They did that on Tuesday, but it wasn't directed, or the words that were written weren't at the direction necessarily of the president. Those were their own thoughts and ideas.
Right, those were the words. But hold on a second, because you said I was taking things out of context. I don't think I was doing that at all. On Tuesday night,
Sean, like we weren't being truthful.
Sean Spicer,
I just want to be clear.
I need to clear this up. Sean Spicer said there was no involvement by the White House. It was all him, Mr. Rosenstein. You said absolutely this was something Rosenstein did on his own. Kellyanne Conway said the firing had everything to do with Rosenstein. And then the vice president even said Rosenstein came to work, sat down, and made the recommendation. He brought the recommendation to the president. But as your own timeline now states, the president was inclined to fire Mr. Comey after the hearings last week. He came to the White House on Monday morning. He asked to see Mr. Rosenstein, and he directed him to write this memo, didn't he?
He did not direct him to write the context of the memo. He asked him to put the comments that he had already made directly to the president in writing. Again, I think that you're trying to beat up the process, but the point here is that the findings in the letter, in the recommendation, were original thoughts by Mr. Rosenstein. But the important component of this is that the Deputy Attorney General, along with many others, felt like Director Comey was not the person that should be running the FBI at this point.
But the president had already made that determination. And is it true, in fact, as the Washington Post is reporting and John Carl said earlier, that the Deputy Attorney General threatened to resign if the White House failed to make that point, that this was a decision that began with the president, not with Mr. Rosenstein?
I'm not aware of his threatening to resign. That's a question I'd have to refer you to the Department of Justice. But what I am clear on, yes, the president very much had been thinking about letting Director Comey go since November 9th.
Why did the president come to the office on Monday inclined to fire James Comey? What was it about his testimony last week that upset the president? Was it the fact that Mr. Comey said he was mildly nauseous at the thought that he might have influenced the election?
Look, I think it was, again, I think this process started in November, probably actually going back even to July, to October, just the constant part of Director Comey being the public face, out on TV, constantly the back and forth, but Wednesday's testimony certainly didn't help, and I think was the final piece that put the president in a place where he felt like Director Comey was no longer the person that should be leading the FBI.
Well, back during the campaign, the president was upset that James Comey wasn't recommending that Hillary Clinton go to jail.
Look, during the campaign that you're a candidate, it's very different than being the president of the United States. Particularly, I think one of the biggest things that we saw on Wednesday was the director of the FBI going around the chain of command. This was one of the first times that he directly came out and explicitly said that he had gone around the chain of command within the Department of Justice. That's basically taking a stick of dynamite and throwing it into the Department of Justice, something you simply cannot do. And one of the things that was reflected in the Deputy Attorney General's letter that he put forth to the president on Tuesday.
That had actually been reported several times before, and the difference now, is, of course, is that James Comey is leading the investigation into Russia. I do want to get into that because the president's letter says, "I greatly appreciate you informing me, Mr. Comey, on 3 separate occasions that I am not under investigation. Sources close to Comey say that's not true, and it would likely violate Justice Department and FBI procedures." Are you sure that what the president wrote is true?
I've heard that directly from him, that information was relayed directly to him from Director Comey.
What were those occasions, and how did Mr. Comey provide that assurance?
I'm not going to get into the details of those conversations that the president had with the director.
But you're confident that Mr. Comey did provide those assurances, even though sources close to him say it's not true?
I think getting it directly from the source is a lot better than sources closest to, so yes, sir.
Sarah Huckabee Sanders, thanks for joining us this morning.
Thanks so much, George.
Let's talk now to Republican strategist, CNBC contributor Sarah Fagan. Thanks for coming in this morning. Sarah, you and I have both worked in White Houses. How do you assess how the White House is handling the fallout here?
Well, they seem really taken back by the fact that Republicans and Democrats, especially Democrats, but some Republicans, are really questioning this decision. And so they were caught flat-footed. They're trying to adjust. They're putting people out. Sarah just gave an interview with you where she, I think, made the case that Donald Trump had been thinking about this. They're starting to get the facts out. It would have been better for them to put all the facts out the day they made the decision.
Well, in fact, she said that the final straw there was the testimony last week. In fact, the day before, they were saying it was the memo from Mr. Rosenstein. And I think that's one of the things that has so many people raising questions, that in fact they want people to believe, according to that memo, that the reason Comey was fired was because he was too tough on Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, that's not credible. And it's not really credible to anyone. And so the reality is the president does have the right to dismiss the FBI director. He made that decision. He should have laid it out. I think what he also should have done, though, is if you're going to make a move like that, have a replacement in mind. Have somebody who's above reproach that you can install immediately in the job that can take away some of these questions about why you did it. You know, you're trying to put somebody in there who's just there to protect your side of this Russia debate, which is inappropriate.
He was trying to solve a problem. Did he make it worse?
He's made it worse. And he actually is making it worse now as they dump kerosene on this every day. When they don't get these facts and you have different members of the staff saying different things, they've got to figure out what they're going to do with the FBI. They've got to get in unison. They've got to lay out a plan. And they've now, because of the way this was handled, they have to put somebody in there that is really untouchable by Democrats or Republicans. There's not many people who fit that bill.
Sarah Fagan, thanks for coming in this morning. Michael?
All right, thank you, George. And out of that breaking news, a standoff in New Jersey lasting more than 24 hours between officers and a suspect, firing shots from this home, killing at least one person and injuring 3 others. ABC's Gio Benitez is on the scene in Trenton, New Jersey with the rest of the story. Good morning, Gio.
Michael, good morning to you. Police are negotiating right now with the suspect. We're hearing the negotiator say things like, "I want this to end peacefully and we have not tried to hurt you." They just want him to come out with his hands up. For more than 24 hours, police in New Jersey engaged in a deadly standoff with a man barricaded in this home. Police say the suspect, Tylee Reese, opened fire on authorities who took cover behind cars in this residential neighborhood. Just after 6 a.m. Wednesday, U.S. Marshals on the Fugitive Task Force serving a warrant at the family home when Reese reportedly opened fire.
As the officers were backing out of the house under fire, suspect continued to fire.